Happy Wednesday, everyone. I'm back to help you get through the midweek hump with more scintillating headlines and sense making. I'm, of course, Kaizen. You are, of course, watching me. And before I get into all of this, I wanted to just thank everyone who sent me a message of support after yesterday's stream. I was admittedly very frustrated. Um, it's with a lot of stuff, but I think let's put everything under the headline state of the world and civil discourse and critical thinking and intellectual humility or lack thereof. And I just appreciate people letting me know that they're watching and why they watch, because yeah, the consistent theme that I heard was that people watch me not because I say things that you agree with all the time, but because you like to think and you like to have your ideas challenged in a way that is supportive of your own growth, and you like to listen to a voice who doesn't just tell you what you want to hear, but actually gets you to consider why you think the things that you do. And I think that's really a testament to you as the viewer, because that's a rare attribute. It's a very rare attribute. Most people, at least I've observed, most people commenting in the political space in particular, are not really interested in listening, not really interested in evolving their view, but often are more interested in winning arguments than finding solutions. And yeah, as someone who, every time I look at my phone these days, I'm getting notifications and I get people throwing their opinions at me, or not even throwing their opinions at me, but throwing at each other, or just being really nasty to each other, or typing in all caps, or just like getting unnecessarily hostile. It can get really fatiguing, and it makes me wonder sometimes, am I just yelling into the void? And yeah, the messages I got from many of you reminded me that no, I'm not just yelling into the void, and this stuff matters. And also, on a personal note, I've realized I'm just pretty burnt out. For those of you who are not familiar with my journey, I didn't follow politics at all before pretty much like May or March ish of last year. In fact, I was so dissociated from politics and the news more generally that my siblings, I have a younger brother and a younger sister, and we have these weekly, it's more like every other week or every 3 weeks, we hop on a call and just catch up and see how everyone's doing. Um, they would like tell me things that were going on in the world, and I just would have no idea that these things were going on. Um, and they were like, yeah, like I remember my best friend, he was like, dude, you like need to watch the news, like you don't know what's going on in the world. And I was very intentional about that, because in my view, there was just so much confusion and noise, and it didn't seem to make any sense. So it's actually a complete 180 for me to have gone all in on political discourse pretty much since July 13th of last year. That was the day that Trump got shot, and my heart just jumped out of my chest, and I thought, okay, I need to start speaking up, because humanity is not on a good track, and I want to do my small part to try to rewrite the trajectory that we're on. And yeah, I've been pretty much in the arena of talking about this stuff nonstop for the last year. And yeah, I think it's taken a toll on me more than I've allowed myself to realize. And I mean, I guess we're just telling all at this point. I'm also in the middle of a career transition, right? Because I am a life coach by trade, and that's what I've been doing for the last 4 years. But I'm transitioning fully into thought leadership, and it's financially stressful. It is emotionally laborious. It requires a lot of thinking and a lot of delicacy to navigate this transition for me. And there's a lot riding on what I'm working on right now. There's a very big project that I'm working on that I'm going to announce. It's going to be next week, might be the week after, but very soon you're going to hear about it. And I'm very proud of what I'm building. I'm very excited to release it into the world, but it's a lot, And then, I go on Instagram, and this actually just ticked me off. So I'm just venting right now before we get into the stuff that you guys want to hear about. Yeah, it's like I posted a reel. I haven't been posting as many videos, you may have noticed, and I posted a video, and someone was like, this is irrelevant. I think you're just trying to avoid talking about Trump's big, beautiful bill. And I'm like, okay, this is like such a presumptuous DM to get, because you're not paying me to be your news source. You're not paying me at all, in fact. And I'm just talking about the things that I'm interested in. And I got other things going on in my life besides talking about politics all the time. So it just feels really presumptuous for someone to, I mean, it's okay if you want me to talk about something. I'm always open to suggestion, but for someone to come at me and then say, I think you're trying to avoid this topic when I've been doing nothing but jumping into the most controversial topics for the last year. Well, it's frankly really insulting. And then another person like DMs me in all caps and is like, what is going on? So yeah, the level of entitlement people can have when they're getting free breakdowns on the internet to me is like shocking. And I recognize that comes with being in the arena, right? Like if I don't want to deal with this, I could just put the microphone down. No one is telling me to do this, but yeah, just on a human level, that's a bit of what's been going on with me. That explains why I haven't been making as many videos lately, because combination of just being kind of burnt out, and I'm working on more long-term things. And yeah, right now I'm transitioning to focusing on making this a sustainable business for me and something that supports my life as I support the cause that I'm on. So wanted to give you all context for those of you who are interested in my background as a human, and especially those of you who reached out. I really appreciate it. Okay, enough with all that sappy stuff. Let's talk about the news. So there are two things I want to talk about today. And normally I just start riffing and I talk about things in the order that I want to, but I'm actually curious to hear from you guys. What do you want to hear me on opine on first? We got two things I'm prepared to talk about, and then we can also talk about things I'm not prepared to talk about. One of them is this recent viral video that's been going around of this black man who's sitting in his car and a cop punches open the window, and then he goes further than punching open the window. He punches the guy in the face. And then there's multiple sides to this story. So that's a summary. We could talk about that because I think there's some interesting social dynamics going on here. Or we can talk about the Epstein latest developments and yeah, just what's been going on there, and continue to follow that thread that we've been talking about for about a week and a half now. So just go ahead and type in the chat. Which one would you like to hear me talk about first? I'm going to talk about both, but which one would you like first since you're here early? Okay, let's see. What do the people want? Okay, someone said talk about the viral vid first. Police video. All right, let's do it. Okay, so you know what? We're not going to talk too much about the framing of things. I just want you to first see what people saw on social media, and then I'll give you the analysis. So this is in chronological order. This is the reason I'm presenting these two videos in this order. First, this video came out, and then a second video came out. This was the original.
Exit the vehicle now. Exit the vehicle.
When he pulled me over, he walked up, opened my door because my window don't work, right? Okay. And then I said, so what I did wrong? Yeah. He said, well, for one, your headlights are off under this weather. I'm like, okay. There's multiple people headlights off, first of all. And then there's no rain.
It doesn't matter. You're still required to have headlights on.
Can you pull that law up?
Huh?
Can you pull that law up?
Yeah, when you step out of the car, I will.
Can you call your supervisor?
Huh?
Can you call your supervisor?
All right, go for it.
Exit the vehicle now. Exit the vehicle. Show me your hands.
Here.
I'm here. What is your reason, sir?
Step out.
What is your reason?
Step out now. All right. Get on the ground.
Oh, no, don't.
Get on the ground.
Stop fighting.
Put your hands behind your back.
Put your hands behind your back.
I'm resisting.
Hands behind your back.
What's wrong with you?
I was putting my hands behind my back.
Ain't no talking now, man. Ain't no talking.
I'm fucking stupid shit, bro. I was fooling, bro. What's going on, man?
You're under arrest. That's what's going on.
No, bro.
Yes, bro.
You
Yes.
have a lawful reason, bro.
Big knife center in here, too.
You gonna throw me going like that, bro?
Yeah, I'm gonna take it off
now,
of you,
man.
bro.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to have a regular conversation with y'all, bro.
That's not how it works.
Too late.
It ain't no too late.
When they asked you to step out of the vehicle, you should have done that shit.
Sir, your partner didn't even ask.
Marijuana in his right pocket.
Yes, it is.
So why close the door if you see him pull up?
Okay. So that's the first video that originally went viral. And from that perspective, looks terrible, right? I mean, the guy sitting in his car, looks like he's having a dispute with the officer. The officer breaks open the window, and then once the window's clearly open, he throws a punch at the guy, hits him square in the face. I gotta say, actually, the guy took it like a champ. I didn't notice that. He didn't like break down crying, so at least he took it like a man. But yeah, it looks really bad from that perspective, right? And then afterward, body cam footage from the arrest was released. So now I want you to watch this second perspective.
Yes, sir.
Is there a reason why you're popping the door open like that?
I don't have a window that works. Is there a reason that you're pulling me over?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a reason why I'm pulling you over. For one thing, inclement weather, you don't have your lights on. Two things, you're not wearing your seatbelt.
It's daylight. I don't need the lights. And it's not weather. It's not raining.
Oh, this is inclement?
It's not raining.
Okay, I'm not arguing with you. I'm telling you why I'm pulling you over. Give me your driver's license, registration, proof of insurance.
No, call your supervisor. Why?
Excuse me?
Call your supervisor.
Step out of the vehicle.
No.
Step out of the vehicle. 25 seconds.
Okay, so to narrate this a little bit, so you'll notice the second video starts earlier than the first one did, because the first one just shows the provocation that happened once the driver closed his door. But what this body cam footage is revealing is that the guy was pulled over. He refused to show his license and registration, locked the door, kept the window up. He's saying the window was stuck, but he resisted arrest. So whether we agree or disagree on the actions that the police officer took, let's just first acknowledge that this was a lawful request by the officer, and this guy unlawfully resisted arrest. And as a citizen, not a lawyer here, but my understanding of the law is that even if you disagree with the reason that a cop is pulling you over, you do not have a right to refuse to show your license and registration and to refuse to exit the vehicle. You could be adjudicated later that the cop made a mistake or discriminated against this guy and did something that he shouldn't have done. But as a citizen, you don't get to do that, even if you disagree with the reason. So let's continue watching here.
For 9-4, the driver just slammed the door and locked it. I've already told you. Right now, you're under arrest for resisting. Sir, this is your last warning to open the vehicle and exit before we're going to break the window. Open the door and exit, or we are going to break the window. Open the door and exit, or we are going to break the window. Open the door and exit. You are under arrest for resisting. Open the door and exit. You are under arrest for resisting. Open the door and exit. You are under arrest for resisting. Open the door and exit. You are under arrest for resisting. I'm about to break the window.
All right, go for it.
Exit the vehicle now! Exit the vehicle!
What is your reason? Step out. What is your reason? Step out now.
And then things proceed from there. So what do we make of this? Well, I want to show you a comment by one popular conservative commentator, Matt Walsh, and his take on it. Because Matt Walsh says, I just have no sympathy anymore. This asshole was given a lawful order. He was belligerent for no reason. He was warned seven times. He went out of his way to turn a routine traffic stop into an incident. I don't care that he got punched in the face. An obnoxious asshole trying to make everything difficult for no reason at all. No sympathy for these kinds of people. Okay. Well, here's what I agree with. It is true that this guy was given a lawful order. And I think it's also true that he was belligerent unnecessarily. I mean, it's like, you don't have to agree with why the cop pulled you over. You do have to follow the law. And if you feel like the reason that you got pulled over is illegal or prejudicial, you get to bring that up in court after the fact, not before. So I agree with Matt that, yes, this guy was belligerent. I also agree that this person, it looked like, was looking for causing a problem. Maybe he was frustrated with his life. Maybe he saw an opportunity to go viral on social media like he evidently did. So, yeah, I don't feel that there was some situation here where he was needing to stand up for some clear infringement upon justice. So I would say that the guy, the gentleman, the black gentleman who got his face punched in was behaving unlawfully and stupidly. And I believe that the officer was behaving lawfully. That said, we got to talk about proportionate response here. And this is what I don't like about the commentary when we get into situations where it's like one person versus another, but both people are clearly acting in ways that are improper, because we should be able to just say, yeah, both people are acting improperly. The driver was acting improperly by not getting out of his vehicle and resisting arrest. And the officer escalated things to a level that was clearly unnecessary by punching him in the face. The guy was just sitting there in the car. When the officer had opened the window, he could have just opened the door, pull the guy out, throw him to the ground, tell him he's under arrest, handcuff him. I understand that the gentleman in the car was acting very stupidly and unlawfully. Does that justify any manner of response? Some people are saying they don't have any sympathy for the driver. Fine. You don't need to have any sympathy. This is not about how you should feel. This is about what do we consider an appropriate and proportional response to the original action? What is the right effect for the cause? If the officer had shot him, would we say, well, this guy was acting stupidly, so he deserved what he got? Of course not. And you know what I think is underlying all of this? And this is why I mentioned race in the title for the stream, because I think this is the underlying animosity. I think there are many white Americans who are very tired of seeing Black Americans in conflicts with police behave in a manner that they consider unreasonable. We're just going to say the quiet part out loud. I think that's a lot of what's going on. I don't know if that's the case for Matt, but it's certainly for the case for a lot of people who resonated with what Matt said. And yes, Black people are disproportionately the ones getting into conflicts with police officers. And there are many videos of Black people resisting arrest, in many cases belligerently and unlawfully. I think this is one such case. And I wish we didn't have to talk about race, but yeah, there's a pattern here. And I think that many people are reacting to that pattern as like, oh, look, another Black guy creating a situation that didn't need to be created. And then on the other side, there's a lot of Black Americans who look at this as an example of police brutality, of police abusing Black people for being Black. Now, was that the case here? I don't see any evidence to suggest that this is about him being Black. And that would require more evidence than we actually see from these two videos. So people are saying this is about race, like the actual interaction itself is about race. I think they're reading into it if they're saying, oh, the cop is profiling him. That said, I think the part that is clearly about race is how people's responses are getting conditioned to this situation. Because imagine the information ecosystems that some people are in. A lot of people who follow Matt Walsh, they are in a more right-wing Twitter, and a very right-wing Twitter, a very like strictly a Twitter where they're constantly getting fed images of like this, of Black people resisting arrest. And in this case, it's not a really good reason for him to be resisting arrest. So they're seeing this and like, oh my God, they're all behaving like this. Like, why do Black people keep getting to act like this? And I think that was some of the animus that, by the way, was driving this whole Shiloh Hendricks situation. Remember a few months ago, there was this white lady who called a little Black kid the N-word in a park. And then she raised, I think at least $750,000. I'm not sure what the last amount was. And that came after several months prior to that, the Carmelo Anthony and Anthony Metcalf situation. So yeah, unfortunately, we do need to talk about race because I'm tracking this closely because I see both sides, right? As a Black man who is in the right-wing ecosphere of Twitter, I actually get to see both sides. I understand why both sides feel the way that they do. But I think both sides should be able to say, hey, look, this is just inappropriate behavior by the driver and inappropriate behavior by the cop. It's clearly excessive force. And it may be true that the driver got pulled over without probable cause, but even if that's the case, yeah, the driver doesn't get to resist arrest. But just because someone behaves in an irrational way does not mean you get to behave irrationally toward them. We got to stop racing to the bottom because that's what's going on right now. It is a digital race war to the bottom. And what's happening is people are becoming tribal. And rather than saying, yeah, that guy did wrong and this person did wrong, they're just focusing on the misdeeds of one party and saying, oh, I don't have any sympathy because they did that. That's not a way to construct a civil society that's based on law, order, and fairness. You got to stop doing this. So yeah, I think it's ridiculous for Black people who are viewing this, and it's not all Black people feel this way. This Black person doesn't feel this way, to view this and be like, oh, this is just a white cop completely without provocation abusing a Black man. There was some provocation. I just think that his reaction was disproportionate. And I think it's unreasonable for people who are white viewing this and saying, well, this is yet another Black person just causing belligerence and resisting arrest, and he got what he deserved. I think that's also ridiculous. There's wrong on both sides here. And we can get into discussion about who is more wrong. I personally think that there's just no reason for the cop to punch him in the face. And as a cop, I imagine, yeah, I can see why as a cop you'd be frustrated. Like, I do have sympathy for the fact that he's probably dealing with this kind of nonsense all day. And not even like, in a racial sense, just like as a cop, you're dealing with the underbelly of society, dealing with frustrated people, emotional people. I totally get that a cop is going to blow his top. I do think that the cop needs to be disciplined, though, because that's a job. And you're held to a high standard, particularly as the man with the gun in the interaction. You have power in the interaction, and there's a lot of responsibility there. So, yeah, I hope that he's disciplined for this action because it's not okay. And if that's not clear, let's reverse the situation. Let's imagine that this was a black cop doing this to a white guy. Let's imagine that it was a black cop who pulled someone over, and maybe we disagree on the reason that they pulled the driver over, and the driver was white. The driver said, my window's not working. The driver shut his door. The driver said, hey, I'm not going to reveal my license or identification. Then the driver sets up a dash cam or his phone, sits in there, waits for the cop to break open the window, and then after the cop breaks open the window, the black cop punches the white driver in the face. I wonder if many of the people who are resonating with Matt, well, no, I'm just going to say with my chest, I don't think a lot of the people who are responding to Matt's point would be responding with the same level of emotional conviction that, oh, there should be no sympathy. No, you'd be like, this cop should not be pushing this guy in the face. And I wish we didn't have to talk about the racial dynamic, but we have to talk about the racial dynamic because I think this is a thread that goes back to Shiloh Hendricks and Anthony Metcalf, or Anthony Carmelo versus Austin Metcalf, and obviously before that. But yeah, it's like we should be able to reason from behind what's called a veil of ignorance. The veil of ignorance is a concept from philosophy by a philosopher named John Rawls. He was a philosopher of ethics. And I think this is a really useful reasoning device. It's like, take your race, your nationality, your identity, your everything out of it. Take all personal proclivities out of it and just try to observe things from an impartial perspective. What should be done here? Well, what should ideally be done is the cop pulls someone over for the right reasons, but regardless of whether the cop pulled them over for the right or wrong reasons, the person complies, even if they're frustrated, even if they feel like they shouldn't be getting pulled over, they comply. They open the door, they show their license and registration, they step out of the vehicle if requested, and they remember their Fifth Amendment rights if things need to go beyond that. And failing the citizen doing that, the person enforcing the law should say, okay, well, this person's resisting arrest. I now have rights to enter their vehicle. I'm going to smash open their vehicle. I'm not going to be physically violent toward them unless I feel like I need to do that to diffuse a difficult and violent situation. Now I'm going to pull the guy out of the vehicle and we're going to handcuff him. That would be the appropriate response on both sides. And I just wish we could all reason from behind the veil of ignorance more often and just call a spade and not have to make everything about sides. But unfortunately, that's where we got in tribal culture. And on X, tribal posts go viral. That's just the situation. People just get emotional. It's not just X. It's social media in general. People, they just see the first thing. They're interested in right versus wrong, black versus white, binaries, tribes, and people are unwilling or uninterested in just being even-handed in the pursuit of justice. And it's really disappointing. But I wanted to talk about the racial dimensions because that's what I think is really underneath all of this, and that's how it's playing out. Okay. There's one more thing I wanted to say about this, I think. Oh, yeah, one more thing. We're all in algorithmic echo chambers, and we should always be aware of the fact that we're all being fed part of the story all the time, and that's by design. Because the algorithms are not designed to give you truth, they're designed to give you engagement. So if you're liking certain posts, if you're stopping on certain posts and reading them longer, if you're clicking on certain posts, if you're commenting on certain posts, if you're sharing certain posts, you're going to get more posts like that. And one of the things I saw from people is people being very entrenched in the position that was derived from whatever video they saw first. So if you saw the video of the cop telling the guy to get out of the car 7 times first, then you're probably going to be more sympathetic to the cop. And you're probably in an algorithm that's more right wing and sympathetic to cops, because that's usually right wing, right? Left wing is saying defund the police. If you're someone who is more sympathetic to a more leftist point of view or a more minority point of view, you're probably going to get fed the video of this guy getting punched in the face first. And I just encourage you, whatever algorithms you're being fed, just recognize we're all in an algorithmic echo chamber. And even if you think you're someone who sees reality objectively, you're not being fed an objective reality. And that's a level of humility we all need to have around social media. So yeah, that's it. This is not like the biggest story in the world, but I thought it's an interesting social and somewhat political moment to observe. And I just hope it encourages everyone to just like self-reflect on what narrative are we immediately buying without skepticism, and what are we justifying by saying someone else did a bad thing, so they deserve to have bad things happen to them. It's a completely ridiculous train of logic. And on a similar note, I want to show you guys this. This is like absolutely crazy to me. Some of the stuff we see our elected leaders saying. So this is a tweet from a sitting U.S. congressperson where he says, and I think this guy has a history of saying stuff like this. Release the hostages. Until then, starve away. This is all a lie anyway. It amazes me that the media continues to regurgitate Muslim terror propaganda. Okay. So we'll first talk about the Muslim terror propaganda part. We'll talk about that second, but let's just engage with the substance of the tweet before that. Basically, what he's saying, or the implication here, is that Hamas hasn't released the hostages, and if Hamas just releases the hostages, then the starving of the Palestinian people should stop. So until then, starve away. So let's first talk about the emotional part of this. And I feel like this is something that I noticed on the conservative movement, that it's just like, Ben Shapiro is famous for this, right? Like, facts don't care about your feelings, which is true, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't care about people's feelings, okay? We're not walking facts. We're human beings. We are evolved primates with a limbic system that happen to develop a really robust prefrontal cortex. We're not that logical, and the way we experience reality is with feelings. And the entirety of your life is trying to avoid bad feelings and have good feelings. So when we talk about the idea of compassion, it's not supposed to be an override for facts. It's supposed to be a complement to facts. And compassion, the root of the word, means actually to suffer with. To be compassionate is to suffer with someone. And when I see comments like this, it's so clearly lacking any degree of compassion that not only does it make the comment hard to, I think it's clearly not going to convince anyone who is sympathetic to the pro-Palestinian camp to maybe look at the reasons why Hamas is helping to perpetuate this suffering of the Palestinian people. It's also likely to just undermine the entire pro-Israel agenda if you're pro-Israel. Comments like this: release the hostages, until then, starve away. Hey, look, Hamas, yes, was elected by the Palestinian people, but that happened in 2006. That means there are kids who are 18 years old and younger right now who are for sure dying and allegedly starving, who had nothing to do with Hamas and didn't pick Hamas and didn't democratically elect them. There are people who are protesting against Hamas right now in Gaza who are being killed by Hamas for protesting. They tried something quasi-democratic, let's say quasi-democratic, in Palestine. And yeah, there are a lot of people who were of voting age and made a conscious choice and chose their leadership, and yet are responsible for what happens to them. And we can still have compassion for the idea that sometimes a leader acts in a way that is not in service of the people. And the people suffer, and hopefully, regardless of, well, what should you have logically done, we can just have some empathy for that. And this is so lacking empathy, it is inhumane. And I actually think that some of the time, people, they don't understand that actually empathy is a prerequisite to understanding the broader context of facts that make a situation, that are relevant for understanding a situation. because we get very stuck in this very rigid linear way of thinking where it's like, well, you're responsible for anything that happened because your politicians who you voted for chose this. Okay, well, let's look at this a different way. If Donald Trump, when he bombed Iran, which, I think was probably the right call in hindsight and in foresight, but imagine if he had bombed Iran and things had gone on a completely different timeline. Imagine that he bombed Iran to try to stop them from getting nukes. And by Iran, I mean the Islamic Republic that controls Iran. And that had triggered World War III. And China and Russia had been brought in because they're more aligned with Iran than the US. And they started dropping nukes on LA and New York. Would the appropriate response be, well, you started this war, and talking to a person who just like lost their child or is starving? Well, you started this war, so you get to bear the consequences. I mean, you can recognize, yeah, you voted for a person who started the war and you are partially responsible for what happened. Just because you're responsible doesn't mean that we want to behave in an inhumane fashion toward you. And that's what I see a lot of the time when we get into these commentaries where like people are getting hurt. It's like, yeah, I recognize that this person was part of the causal chain of events that led to them getting hurt. And can we recognize that a person's getting hurt? Because that's so hard. Like, you don't need to have sympathy even. You can be cold and detached and just be like, yeah, that is not conducive to human thriving. For cops to be punching people in the face or for children to be starving in Gaza. Not that these are at all proportional, of course, but I'm just trying to help people logically understand why empathy and compassion is important. And to just like acknowledge both sides of the issue. You don't lose anything by acknowledging both sides of the issue. But yeah, I just see people so often focus on winning arguments. And I think this is the Achilles heel of the right. I think the right, I'm speaking broadly, not of everyone, but the right often has head and not as much heart. And I think the left has heart and very little head. Not being logical, way too emotional, and making decisions that ironically end up hurting people. But yeah, this is why I think both sides have something to learn from one another, because yeah, when I see comments like this, I mean, I try not to use strong emotional language, but that comment by Randy Fine was disgusting to me. It's disgusting. I think this is the same guy who was like putting his autograph on bombs that were being sent to Gaza. Someone can fact check me on that. I know there was some elected leader who was like putting their signature on bombs. It's like, look, you can believe that we need to drop bombs to stop terrorists. And maybe you believe that defending Israel is in the interest of America, or maybe you just have some more ideological commitment to Israel and you just want to stand with Israel and defend them against extremists. But putting your name on a bomb? Come on. Hopefully we can recognize this is something we need to do, not something we should celebrate doing. So yeah, this is both an irrational and an inhumane and an insane take from Randy Fine. All right. Any comments? Let's see what the people are saying about this whole white cop, black man situation. Okay. The white driver deserves to get punched too if he's resisting arrest. LOL. Race doesn't matter here. How about no one should be getting punched in the face for non-violently resisting arrest? Isn't that the simplest solution? Why are we justifying cops punching people in the face? Okay, if I do something that is bad, but it's like a 2 or 3 out of 10 bad, do I deserve to have something that is a 5 or 6 out of 10 bad done to me? It's about proportionality. So no, I'm not going to say that cops are justified in doing anything to citizens because citizens are resisting. And also, I have sympathy for the fact that, yeah, the cops probably dealing with a lot of stuff. And I expect this to happen. It's like, dude, I get it, man. Like, you're just trying to do your job, and this guy is making your job as difficult as it can be. I understand emotionally why he would want to punch the guy. It is not justified, and he should be disciplined. Good take from Stan Evans. I agree. The whole situation was wrong. Cops said he pulled the guy over for not having lights on during the daytime. Yeah, that's kind of a weird explanation. I'm trying not to armchair adjudicate what that was about. I mean, there are places I know, at least in California, where you do need to have your headlights on when you're driving during the daytime because there's some visibility issues, and the headlights help to ameliorate that. But yeah, it is strange. I don't really know what's going on there. So just because you said you've never heard of that in your life, that's an example where it would happen. And the way that the guy got punched was just wrong. The cop should be held accountable. Yeah. Like this, I'm sure in police training, they don't say if the person non-violently resists arrest and you manage to open the vehicle, you should punch them in the face for resisting arrest. Like what kind of police training would that be? Let's see. Okay, this is a good nuance here. So the cop definitely pulled the dude over for bogus reasons. Not sure about that. But he 1000% acted out of line and made his situation worse. Had he simply complied, he probably would have gotten off with just a ticket, maybe even a warning if he was polite enough. Yeah, I agree. Right? So the guy is responsible for what happened to him. And what I'm saying is the driver is responsible for putting in place a chain of events that could lead to him getting punched. I'm not saying he deserved to get punched in a moral sense, but yeah, you're responsible for putting yourself in a violent situation, potentially violent situation by resisting arrest because you're choosing to escalate by resisting arrest. And at the same time, the cop has free will. He is a sovereign agent who can choose, I'm either going to punch the window open, not punch the guy, pull him out and handcuff him, or I'm going to punch him in the face because he was resisting arrest, or I'm going to shoot him because he was resisting arrest, or tase him. There's so many things that the cop could have done, and we don't say you get to do anything because of the immediate proximate cause. But yeah, I agree. This guy, he put himself in this situation. And I understand why people don't, like, whether people have sympathy is more a function of your background, who you personally resonate with, your individual values. You know, maybe you have someone you're related to in law enforcement. Maybe you were in law enforcement. Maybe you just feel closer to a certain human being in the interaction. That's fine. I'm not telling people what they should feel. I'm telling people what the principle should be. And we need to operate off of principle, not preference. Any more comments here? All right, let's give Instagram some love. I always forget to check the comments on Instagram. So Instagram, I see you. Someone said, yep, we need educated law enforcement. Preach. Someone says, sometimes people need to punch in the face. Well, it happens. I prefer that cops don't give it, especially because cops have guns. And you can't really, if a cop's acting out of line, there's nothing you can do to the cop because they can shoot you. Someone said, and the left is a hypocrite. They say one thing and do another. Well, that brings me to our next topic then. Let's talk about the Epstein news because there's hypocrisy all around. And this is another case where people are using hypocrisy to justify yet more hypocrisy. So to give you an update on the latest news in the Epstein case, for those of you who have not been following along, the reason we're all talking about Epstein is because in June and September of 2024, Donald Trump, when asked in interviews whether he would disclose the Epstein files, indicated that he was open to it. He indicated, he didn't make a promise, but he indicated an openness to it. And then in February of this year, Attorney General Pam Bondi, who is a Trump appointee, made a big media spectacle of releasing the Epstein files in a multi-phase release. There was a media spectacle of MAGA influencers with white binders, showing off binders that were supposed to have substantive information about the Epstein case. It turned out to be a big nothing burger. There was nothing really new and useful revealed. People were really disappointed. Pam Bondi said, look, I got you. There's going to be more information coming in phase 2. She hyped up the release. She said that there are names. She said that she has the Epstein client list on her desk, or at least she would ask if we're going to get the Epstein client list. And she said she has a list on her desk. Pam Bondi alleged that she misspoke at the time, but the expectation was set. Then about 3 weeks, a month ago now, Pam Bondi said, actually, there's not going to be a phase 2 release. People were really upset about that, particularly within the MAGA base, because for whatever reason, the MAGA base seems more fixated and more focused on the Epstein files than the left is. So they made noise, and there was a rare rupture between Trump and his base, where Trump started saying on Truth Social, this is a Democrat hoax. You shouldn't care about the Epstein files. This guy is long dead. This is a distraction. My administration is winning. We should be focused on that. and he became increasingly combative with his own base, and his base became increasingly combative with him. And then a Wall Street Journal piece came out a week ago that was accusing Trump of having close relationships with Epstein that were evinced by a drawing that Trump allegedly gave Epstein on Epstein's 50th birthday of a well-endowed, I think, blonde woman. Like, it was like a little doodle. I think she was blonde. That was supposed to be Trump, I guess, making a body joke and hinting that they had some sort of shared secret. Now, that was alleged. Trump denied that he ever drew that picture. But since then, things have continued to build. Very shortly after that Wall Street Journal post, Trump, what do I want to say? Relinquished, reneged. There's a R word I really want to find. I can't find it. It's going to really bother me because this is the perfect word. Oh, he relented. Trump relented and said, okay, I've ordered Pam Bondi to look into this. And then, these are the new updates. Pam Bondi said that she was going to pursue the grand jury unsealing documents from the Epstein case. A few hours ago, the judge overseeing that grand jury denied the request and said, no, we will not be unsealing the documents. So that particular way of getting more Epstein documentation was closed off. And we'll see what the Trump administration does in response. But alongside of that, in parallel with that, Congress has been creating pressure and getting pressure to force a vote on releasing the Epstein files. So what happened earlier this week is that a House subcommittee, so this is not the whole House, it was just a subcommittee, voted to subpoena Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, Ghislaine Maxwell was Jeffrey Epstein's primary accomplice in them abusing all of these women and children. And Ghislaine Maxwell has also been in prison because she was one of the two people, of course, being her and Epstein himself, who were indicted and convicted. Now, Ghislaine Maxwell is saying that she has information on the Epstein client list, and everyone, they seem to mean different things when they talk about the Epstein client list. Is it a literal list, or is she talking about the people that she knows were also molesting women and children alongside her and her accomplice? We don't know, but basically she said she's willing to testify, and the House subcommittee voted to subpoena her. So that is happening, and that's something that a House subcommittee could do unilaterally. That doesn't need to be brought to an entire House vote. But what did need to be brought, that was a funny little one. What did need to be brought to a House vote was the House passing, I don't know if it would be a law or an amendment or a motion that would require legally the White House to disclose the Epstein files. Now, originally, Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, who is a Republican, said, yeah, we should just have all the files out there and then the people can decide for themselves. But on Monday, or was it Tuesday? Sorry, I don't know this particular detail. Speaker Mike Johnson changed his tune. Check this out.
In the grand jury testimony and the files there, for example. And the court should turn that over. And that will be a continuing and ongoing quest. Now, what we refuse to do is participate in another one of the Democrats' political games. This is a serious matter. We are not going to let them use this as a political battering ram. The Rules Committee became the ground for them to do that. But we're done being lectured on transparency by the same party that orchestrated one of the most shameless, dangerous political cover-ups in the history of this country or any government on the face of planet Earth. The president has...
Okay. I don't like this. This is classic political speak. Classic political speak. But let's give Mike Johnson his due. So I want to make like the Steelman case for why he doesn't want to release these files. And actually, I'm going to direct you to this post that I put out on X so you can go. Actually, you don't need to read it. Honestly, I just need to pull it up because I forget exactly what I said. I want to make sure I just say what I said before. So Speaker Johnson's rationale for blocking a vote on Epstein files is, one, he wants to give the White House space to release the files. Two, the Democrats are playing political games. And three, we need to protect the victims. So those are the three strongest reasons for doing what Representative Mike Johnson did, which is actually adjourn the House early. So they were going to go on recess after this week, but he decided to adjourn the House and send them on recess early. So they're officially on recess right now, rather than allow a vote on the Epstein files. And that's his rationale. And I would counter it with this. One, we want to give the White House space. They've had plenty of space. They've had all the space in the world for 6 months. They've controlled this whole Epstein rollout process from front to back. Why do they need another, I think it's 5 weeks of space while the House goes on recess to get things in order? Why? And moreover, they are already planning on releasing the Epstein files, allegedly. So what's the problem with making it a law that they have to release the remainder of the Epstein files? I think that's pretty weak rationale. But not as weak as the second piece of rationale, which is that the Democrats are playing political games. Okay, so there's two things here. First of all, the bill that would force the House to, or force the White House to release the rest of the Epstein files had bipartisan support, strong bipartisan support. Republicans and Democrats want this. So are the Democrats playing games? Absolutely they are. It's no secret that either party will do whatever they can to make the other party look bad. So I don't think a lot of these people are grandstanding on Twitter and saying, oh, we need to release the Epstein files. Yeah, a lot of these Democrat lawmakers were not talking about the Epstein files until the Epstein files became an issue for Trump. So I don't buy the authenticity of it for a second. But guess what? The Republicans want this too. And more importantly, the American people want that. So if the Democratic Party wants it, the Republican Party wants it, and the American people want it, why does a speaker get to shut all of that down? And granted, this is probably not Speaker Mike Johnson just making the call himself. I'm just speculating here. But given his change of heart over the last 72-ish hours, I imagine that Trump had something to do with it too. And Mike Johnson has been in lockstep with Trump for a lot of the big, beautiful bill passing and a lot of the legislative agenda. But whether it's Trump or Mike Johnson, the legislative branch is supposed to be the direct manifestation of the will of the people through a legislative process that's transparent to everyone. So if the will of the people is that, hey, we want to see the Epstein files be released, and we're actually past the point of just trusting the Trump administration to release it because they fumbled this many times. And in fact, they fumbled it so badly that now people are suspicious. Allow a vote to hit the floor. Let the elected representatives make that choice. And let them make that choice now, not in 5 weeks from now. Again, I don't really understand. I mean, I'm open to, by the way, to the idea that there's some big blind spot, and but by passing this law, the Democrats would be able to do more than just legislate that the Epstein files could be released, and it would massively complicate a whole bunch of things that I'm not well versed enough on congressional procedures to understand. I'm open to that, but I'm not hearing that. And instead, what I'm seeing is a deflection. Okay, this is classic ad hominem. I'm going to play this statement again. I want you to listen to the latter part of a statement from Mike Johnson. It's classic deflection.
We are not going to let them use this as a political battering ram. The Rules Committee became the ground for them to do that. But we're done being lectured on transparency by the same party that orchestrated one of the most shameless, dangerous political cover-ups in the history of this country or any government on the face of planet Earth.
Okay. Nope. You don't get to do that, okay? You don't get to misbehave and justify your misbehavior by referencing someone else's misbehavior. Look at that. It's just like the cop situation. Two rights don't make a wrong. I understand why when someone is hit, they want to hit back. I understand when someone insults you, you want to insult them back. I understand when someone else has been complicit in corruption, you want to be corrupt back. And you're a leader. You're an elected leader. You don't get to say, because the Democrats did this thing, we get to be not transparent here. Because that's essentially what I'm hearing this as him saying. We're not going to be lectured on transparency. Okay, we'll take this lecture on transparency from the American people. We want transparency. We're promised transparency, We weren't given proper transparency. We suspect there's stuff that we're not being shown, and we would like you to be transparent, even if everyone else in the government is not, because someone has to be the biggest person. And I'm willing to give the Trump administration credit, because I think something that continually gets passed over is the fact that they didn't need to release the Epstein files. This case was settled in 2019. Trump could have easily said, I just don't think this is a big priority. I want to focus my agenda on the things that are actually going to move the needle in the American people's everyday lives, like enforcing the border, deportations, the economy, ending these wars. He could have said that, and frankly, I would think it would have been a reasonable position. I think it would have been totally reasonable, because even though you and I sitting here talking about this stuff, consuming this stuff, it's really important to us, right? But for the average American, Epstein is not even in the top 5, much less top 10 of issues. I'm not saying it shouldn't be. I'm just saying that's how it is. Most people are worried about the things that are affecting them on a day-to-day basis. But Trump indicated that he was open to releasing the Epstein files, and then Pam Bondi essentially made a promise that we were going to get substantive answers. And we didn't get that. So no, please, you do not get to make this about the Democrats. This is ad hominem. Ad hominem is Latin for to the person. It's an ad hominem argument. It's an argument that is shifting focus from him and onto the Democrats. I'm tired of these political games, and I think I speak for many of us when I say that. Just do the right thing, even if someone else did the wrong thing in the past. And this kind of rhetoric makes me suspicious that all of this Russiagate stuff that Trump is now litigating and saying that Obama administration is engaged in a quote unquote, according to the DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, was engaged in a treasonous conspiracy to implicate Trump, including with Russia. A lot of this, the timing of it, especially combined with the misdirection by Mike Johnson here, it makes it look like you're trying to misdirect our attention. And I encourage you as a listener, don't get distracted. I don't know why they're being so resistant and squirrely about this. I don't know why Trump is being so resistant and combative with his own base about this, but this is important. And in fact, it's been made important by Trump. He elevated this, and then Pam Bondi elevated it even further to a matter of national importance. And I want to see this thing seen through to its conclusion. And I want to see Congress pass a law saying, yes, you need to release the Epstein files. Because me personally, my trust has been eroded. Not in general with this administration, although it has had a global impact on my trust in the administration, but more locally on their management of this issue. So now I think it actually behooves them to have a law passed. If they're being honest, it's like they can say, we are following the law. Go ahead and pass the law because we were going to do this anyway. But now for me, it's not enough for Pam Bondi to say, oh, I spoke to Ghislaine Maxwell and she didn't say anything substantive. It's not enough for Pam Bondi to say, hey, well, we tried to have the grand jury unseal these court documents, but they didn't unseal it. It's not enough anymore. There need to be legal ramifications. There need to be strong legislated incentives. Because, their word is just not good enough for me. Not anymore. Not on this issue. And the last point here is that they say they need to protect the victims. I agree. We should protect the victims. And that's totally compatible with releasing the files. What about passing the law means that the victims can't be protected? In fact, isn't that the whole reason that we're now in July and only now we're getting news that we're not going to get the phase 2 documents because they need to protect the victims? Haven't they been protecting the victims the whole time? Haven't they been going through the documents and redacting names and being thorough in this process? So I totally agree. We can protect the victims while getting disclosure, full disclosure. So these arguments are just not compelling to me. And I know some people are saying I'm beating a dead horse. I'm beating a dead horse, and that horse has been resurrected by the Trump administration. So it's a zombie horse now. Sorry. I don't want to keep talking about Epstein. I'm actually tired of talking about Epstein, but we keep on getting headlines about Epstein. And it's important because it's not just about Epstein. It's about politicians taking responsibility. It's about the swamp getting drained. And it's about getting proper follow through on the things that politicians said they would do, which is why Trump got elected in the first place, because people were tired of politicians who would say one thing and do another. And I give Trump credit for relenting. We found the word this time. Relenting and saying, okay, you know what? I'm going to instruct Pam Bondi to unseal the grand jury documents. Okay, well, unfortunately, that path didn't work. What path you got for us next? Because I'm sure there's a whole bunch of things in the political and executive toolkit that he can do. Maybe appoint a special investigator. Maybe ask the victims who would be implicated if they're actually okay with having their identities being disclosed, because there are people who are victims of Jeffrey Epstein who are speaking out right now and saying justice has not been served. I was victimized, and there are other people who are walking free. So there might be other victims who are willing to have documents that implicate them disclosed. So I just want to see this thing brought to the ultimate conclusion. And me personally, look, I suspect that there's not enough evidence to actually put more people behind bars. And I think that the DOJ knew that originally, and that's why they chose to just hyper focus on Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. And that's what legal teams do all the time. And yeah, I also suspect that there was some degree of cover up and people putting their thumb on the scale so that whether it was the evidence that was available or the DOJ's focus was on prosecuting the two people that they did, as opposed to the other people who were involved here. So I'm not even looking for more people to go to prison, although that would be great. I think at least the public getting what genuinely feels like a good faith, fully committed effort to getting the truth. I think there are ways to demonstrate that, and I don't think the Trump administration has been demonstrating that. And every time they resist that, not only do they create more suspicion, they just show that this is not actually a top priority for them. And unfortunately, you kind of made it one for the American people. So those are my thoughts on this. Let's read the chat before I go. I hope everyone, whether you agree with me or disagree, it's made you think something new about it. And this time, we're going to do something new. We're going to read the Instagram people first, because I always skip over the Instagram people. Let's see if there's any good comments here. On the Epstein things in particular. Roxanne Kirchberg says, I thought she said she had the documents on her desk, not specifically the list of names. So what happened, and you know what, maybe I can actually pull up this clip because we showed it a few episodes ago. Bondi. Ooh, I think you're in luck here. I think I can actually show you the clip where she actually said, she responded to a question about whether we would get the Epstein client list specifically. And then she responded by saying, it's on my desk. But I can see how maybe she was thinking Epstein files are on my desk, not a literal client list. And I think it's highly unlikely, personally, that a client list even exists. I don't see why a criminal enterprise would keep a list of all the people that they've been dealing with and leave a trail around for the FBI to find. That just doesn't seem like, I don't know. It doesn't seem like a very smart criminal move. And Jeffrey Epstein was no dummy, but this is what Bondi said.
The clients? Will that the DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing.
Okay, so hopefully that answered your question. That's what she literally did. She responded to a question about the client list by saying it's sitting on her desk. But I'm open to the possibility that she misspoke. Regardless of whether you think she's lying or not, she clearly set expectations extremely high. Someone said Trump is honestly guilty. I don't think that's very likely. So, people are saying stuff like Trump is in the Epstein files. Yeah, 100% he is. We know that because there's already public files from the Epstein case that have been disclosed for years that have Trump on the flight log and in Epstein's contacts. So, yeah, we know Trump knew Epstein. But Trump knowing Epstein is not evidence that Trump molested Epstein's victims. These are two very different claims. There are many people on Epstein's flight logs because Epstein was an incredibly well-connected guy. So simply someone being associated with Epstein is not substantive proof. And I would say that, okay, well, if Trump is guilty, why would he at all indicate that he's going to release Epstein files rather than sidestep it? Or if you think he's dishonest, lie and say he's going to release the files, but just like never actually do it. Why would he allow Pam Bondi to go make a huge media spectacle and go on daytime news shows and say he's going to release the files? And then why didn't the Democrats release the files while they had the files and they were in power? Doesn't make sense to me that Trump is guilty. I assign that a non-zero probability, but a really low one. The incentive model just doesn't make any sense to me. But with the way he's been so resistant, he's resisting in the way that often guilty people do. So I get why people believe this, but I think it's just Trump being what he normally is, which is very adversarial and combative when people want him to do something that he doesn't want to do. And I think for him, it's less that he doesn't want to do it based on what I've seen, because they have done it to an extent. And I think it's more that he thinks this is a distraction. He thinks that this is the Democrats playing games, which they are. And I think he misread how important this actually is to his base. And I think he's frustrated. I'm mind reading now, but I think he's frustrated at the level of attention that this is now taking away from what he considers his big political wins. So that's my read on it. But yeah, I don't think Trump is. Yeah. It's funny, right? It's like no one was saying that Trump is a child predator until this, and now people are like just throwing on child predator. Now he's a convicted felon, Russia conspiracy child predator. It's like, damn, this guy do everything bad in the world. It's like, no, I don't think this particular accusation has much weight to it. Should mention that the judge who had denied the release of a classified docs was Obama appointed. Okay, I'm not sure what the implication is there, but maybe you're saying that because they're Obama appointed, they're more likely to have a bias toward Obama. So if they did have a bias toward Obama and Trump was implicated in the files, then the judge would have an incentive to release the files, I think is what you're probably saying. So yeah, that's an interesting observation. I don't think it's that crucial here. And yeah, if you believe it's a cover-up, now you need to believe that the judge is also part of the cover-up. I don't know, guys, like a lot of these, and we'll call it what it is, a conspiracy theory. I don't mean that as a pejorative. I'm just speaking literally descriptively. You actually believe that there's a conspiracy to cover up the Epstein files. The problem with a lot of this conspiracy theorizing is people allow infinite scope creep where everyone is in on the cover-up. It's like, not only were these billionaire pedophiles in on this cover-up, but the DOJ was, and the Biden administration, and the Trump administration, and the judge, and Pam Bondi. It's like this infinite scope creep. And what that is often it's a form of motivated reasoning. Motivated reasoning is when you decide a conclusion, and then every new piece of data is retrofit into the conclusion that you've already decided. It's not a good way of reasoning. We need to reason from first principles and with beginner mind about every new fact. So yeah, I don't think this is, I think there's a degree of conspiracy, just to be clear. As I said, I think the original investigation was probably compromised, but I don't think it's infinite creep. And I'd be very surprised if a judge was involved in this too. All right, any more comments? Gino Castellanos says, my trust in government has always been low, but now it's clear to me that it's all controlled opposition. I wouldn't say it's all controlled opposition. And here's another, man, we're just dropping all these little logical fallacies and cognitive biases. I just want to introduce these thinking tools to you guys. So there's a, what do you call it? It's a cognitive bias or a logical fallacy. Man, I lost it. I wanted to teach you guys something new. Hold on. This is, which one is it? Oh, okay. Well, one good one is this. It's called composition fallacy. And a form of composition fallacy is group attribution error. It's when you attribute the qualities of one individual to the entire group. So it's like, oh, well, one person in the government is corrupt, therefore they're all corrupt. Or this president lied, therefore all presidents are liars. Or in this case, this person is, this person is controlled opposition, therefore they're all controlled opposition. Again, this is having scope creep on our judgments, Instead, we need to evaluate from first principles whether the individual person and the individual action is right or wrong, or honest or dishonest. So, look, I'm not sitting here saying that Trump is always truthful. I actually do think he's more truthful than most politicians, and I think that's part of why people like him in the first place. But I think saying things like, "Oh, well, it's all controlled opposition," no matter what, any politician who ever gets elected is a tool of the deep state to play out this uniparty game, and the whole world's a stage. It's like, it's scope creep. And these statements, it's like it requires, we need to evaluate each thing on its merits rather than going from 0 to 100 constantly and engaging in false dichotomies and black and white thinking. We need to think of things in terms of probabilities. Like, what percentage of the government is controlled opposition? It's not 0, right? Is it 100? I don't think it's 100 either. Where is it in between that? But I do resonate with the sentiment behind the comment, which is, trust is low and this erodes trust. I agree. And that's sad and frustrating. SD Plastic Surgery says there may have been bipartisan support of Epstein's venture. It's hard to understand because it's been a while since we've seen bipartisan support in the government. I believe that actually there was bipartisan support. And you know what we're going to do as my last trick on stream? We're going to research this together. Okay. We're going to research this together, and we're going to use Grok to do it. So let's share my screen. Okay, we can just make this real simple. What evidence is there that there was bipartisan support in Congress for releasing the Epstein files? Answer in 50 words or less. And I say this because Grok is so verbose. So we don't want to sit here and read an essay. Bipartisan support for releasing the Epstein files is evidenced by Representative Thomas Massie, Republican, and Representative Ro Khanna, Democrat, co-sponsoring a resolution backed by 11 Republicans and 212 Democrats to force a House vote. Great. I'm glad that we asked the question in this way, because what this shows is that there's a lot less Republican support and a lot more Democrat support. And I think part of that is because, yes, the Democrats are trying to make the Republicans look bad, or make Trump look bad. And they want to be the ones who say, hey, look, we got justice and we got transparency on the Epstein files, where the Republicans were unwilling to. And the Republicans probably recognize, hey, we can deny the Democrats a political victory here by voting against this. So I imagine there would be more Republican or less Republican support than Democrat support if this actually did reach the floor. But I guess we're going to have to wait 5 weeks to find out. But yeah, this did have some bipartisan support, and the bill was co-sponsored by a Republican and a Democrat. So yeah, there's bipartisan support for sure. But yeah, this is one of those situations where it just seems like people are so focused on politics, then they miss the bigger point. It's like, the bigger point is not, I don't care which side wins this. I don't care which side scores political points. I just want this to be handled. And I want this to be handled in a way that allows us to move on, because I would like to see most of the dialogue be focused on the things that are urgently facing the country, like the illegal immigration crisis, or these wars that we're still funding and embroiled in, or the fact that millennials and Gen Z can't afford houses, or the fact that people are killing healthcare CEOs because they're frustrated at the lack of quality healthcare available in America. Like, this Epstein stuff is taking up too much attention. And I put that on Trump administration. And now, he's given the Democrats a flame to fan. And now we are here for like the 6th straight episode of Nuance talking about this. But all right, guys, that was a fun stream for me. I'm glad we talked about all this. I'm glad that you guys are watching this, sticking with me, asking good questions, being considerate, being thoughtful, suspending your own beliefs, trying on new beliefs. That's what we need more. And look, you can think everything I said on the stream today is wrong. You can think my values are wrong, all of that. That's okay. I'm here to just help elevate discourse. And I want you to focus less on what I think and more how we can think. So thanks for watching. I'll be back on Friday. I know I've been teasing my big project for a while. I'm going to keep on teasing it. So look out for updates. The best way to stay apprised of any updates on big things that I have announced is to be a part of my newsletter, which is at thatskaizen.substack.com. You can see it, the URL. Which way is it? I think it's that direction on my screen. So I highly recommend that you sign up for my nuanced mailing list. Sometimes I post videos and essays that are only available on that list. So if you like listening to me, that's the right place to go. Until next time, take care of yourself, take care of your mind, take care of your heart, take care of each other. Bye.